Judge Eileen Cannon has dismissed the classified documents case against President Donald Trump. In a ruling today, Cannon said the appointment of special counsel Jack Smith violated the Constitution. Cannon wrote, quote, "In the end, it seems the executive's growing comfort in appointing regulatory special counsels in the more recent era has followed an ad hoc pattern with little judiciary scrutiny."
Okay, so a key witness just disappeared, like literally vanished right before they were supposed to testify in one of Trump's biggest legal battles. And I'm not talking about someone who just decided to skip court. I'm talking about a complete total disappearance that has MAGA leaders absolutely scrambling to control the narrative. Can you believe this? So here's what's happening. We're in the middle of Trump's second term, right? Multiple legal cases are still swirling around him. And just when one of these cases is about to get really interesting, a crucial witness who supposedly has the goods, who knows the secrets, who could potentially blow the whole thing wide open, just goes poof, gone. Vanished into thin air. And the timing? Oh, the timing is absolutely perfect if you're trying to make this look as suspicious as humanly possible. We're talking hours, literally hours before this person was supposed to walk into court and spill everything under oath. And now, radio silence. No one knows where they are. No one's talking. And MAGA world is having an absolute meltdown, trying to figure out how to spin this. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Look, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, people miss court dates all the time, right? Maybe they got cold feet. Maybe they just didn't want to deal with the pressure. But here's the thing. This isn't some random person who got a speeding ticket and decided to skip traffic court. This is a witness in a major Trump case. These are the kind of cases where security is tight, where people are watching, where every move gets scrutinized by lawyers and media and political operatives on both sides. So when someone just disappears, yeah, that raises some serious questions.
Robert Hur, the special prosecutor in the Biden classified documents case. I don't know if you know this, but he's set to testify on Capitol Hill on March 12th. What is one question you're hoping the Republicans or someone who has some honesty up there will ask Mr. Hur?
Well, nobody else has been over the years because, you know, Hillary took a lot and Bill took a lot. Bill took them out in his socks. They call it the socks case, which he won with a very tough judge, which he won. Bush took him, everybody, Reagan took him out, everybody took him out. It only became a big subject when I took things out. The difference is I had what's called the Presidential Records Act. I was allowed to do what I did, absolutely allowed. That's why they passed the act in 1978. They passed the Presidential Records Act. But you can only use it or be there if you're president.
And the reactions online? Absolutely insane. You've got Trump supporters screaming about the deep state, claiming this is proof that shadowy forces are manipulating witnesses and tampering with evidence. You've got critics pointing fingers directly at Trump's inner circle, suggesting witness intimidation or worse. Everyone's got a theory, everyone's got an angle, and social media is exploding with accusations flying in every direction. There's literally a hashtag trending right now, vanished witness. It's everywhere, thousands of people arguing, debating, throwing around conspiracy theories like confetti. And the craziest part, both sides think they're right. Both sides are absolutely convinced that this proves their point about corruption and manipulation and political warfare. Now let's talk about who we're actually discussing here, because the details around this witness situation get even weirder when you dig into the specifics. We're looking at cases involving Trump's longtime financial advisor, people who switched lawyers and suddenly changed their testimony, witnesses whose names are being kept secret because of safety concerns. This isn't just one isolated incident. This is a pattern of witnesses who either disappear, change their stories, or suddenly decide that maybe they don't remember things quite as clearly as they thought they did. Take Alan Weisselberg, for example. This guy was Trump's chief financial officer for decades. He knows where all the bodies are buried. Metaphorically speaking, of course. He's sitting in jail right now on a perjury charge. And in Trump's Manhattan criminal trial, they never called him to testify. Never. Even though he has direct knowledge about the exact things they were investigating. Why? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And then you've got the classified documents case. That's a whole nother circus. Witnesses changing their testimony after they switch lawyers. Court battles about whether witness names should be made public because of safety concerns. People who were supposedly cooperating. and then suddenly they're not cooperating anymore. What changed? Who got to them? Or, and this is what Trump's team would argue, were they pressured in the first place to say things that weren't true? See, this is where it gets messy. Because depending on which side you're on, this witness vanishing act proves completely opposite things. If you're anti-Trump, this looks like classic intimidation. Witnesses getting scared, people being silenced, the kind of stuff you see in mob movies. But if you're pro-Trump, this is evidence of witness tampering by prosecutors, people being coerced into lying, and when they can't handle the pressure anymore, they bail. And honestly, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but good luck getting anyone to admit that right now. Because we're in an election year, Trump's facing multiple legal threats, and MAGA leadership is trying desperately to control how all of this plays out in the court of public opinion. They need their base fired up. They need fundraising dollars flowing. And nothing fires up the base quite like a good conspiracy about vanishing witnesses and corrupt prosecutors. So buckle up, because this story is just getting started. Alright, so let's dig deeper into what's actually happening here. Because the surface level story, witness vanishes, that's dramatic enough. But when you start looking at the details, when you start connecting the dots between different cases and different witnesses and different timelines, this gets way more complicated than just one person skipping out on court. First, let's talk about the actual cases we're dealing with. Trump right now, even in his second term, is still tangled up in legal battles that started years ago. You've got the Manhattan criminal trial stuff, the classified documents case, various other investigations that keep popping up. And in every single one of these cases, witnesses are absolutely crucial. These aren't cases where you just show up with documents and let the paperwork speak for itself. These are cases built on testimony, on people willing to go under oath and say what they saw, what they heard, what they were told to do. And that's where the pressure comes in. That's because being a witness in a Trump case, that's not like being a witness in a normal trial. You're not just dealing with lawyers asking you questions. You're dealing with media attention, social media mobs, political operatives trying to dig up dirt on you, and the very real possibility that millions of people are going to form strong opinions about you based on what you say. Let's go back to Weisselberg for a second. This guy, he was Trump's money man for decades. He signed the checks. He knew the accounting tricks. He understood how Trump's business empire actually operated behind the scenes. And when prosecutors in Manhattan were building their case, everyone assumed Weisselberg would be the star witness, the guy who could walk the jury through exactly what happened, who authorized what, where the money went. But here's what actually happened. Weisselberg took a plea deal. He admitted to tax fraud. He went to jail. And then when it came time for Trump's trial, prosecutors never called him, never put him on the stand. And why? Well, the official story is that Weisselberg wasn't cooperating the way they needed him to, that he was still loyal to Trump, that his testimony might actually hurt their case more than help it. But come on, does that really make sense? You've got a guy who literally pleaded guilty to crimes related to Trump's organization, a guy who clearly has knowledge about the inner workings of Trump's finances, and you just don't use him. That strikes a lot of people as suspicious. Either prosecutors were afraid of what he might say, or they were afraid of putting him in a position where he'd face even more pressure, or maybe, just maybe, there were concerns about his safety or willingness to actually tell the truth. And before you think I'm pushing some conspiracy theory here, let's remember that Weisselberg is currently in jail on a perjury charge. Perjury, as in lying under oath. So clearly, there were already questions about whether this guy was being truthful or whether he was protecting someone. Now let's jump over to the classified documents case. This is the one where Trump allegedly took classified materials to Mar-a-Lago after leaving office. Prosecutors have been building this case for a while, and witnesses have been crucial. But here's where it gets interesting. Multiple reports have confirmed that at least one witness in this case changed their testimony after switching lawyers. Changed it. As in, they said one thing, then got a new lawyer, and suddenly they're saying something different. What does that tell you? Well, it could mean the original testimony was coerced. Maybe prosecutors were pushing too hard. Maybe the witness felt pressured to say things that weren't accurate, and when they got better legal representation, they corrected the record. That's the pro-Trump interpretation. Or, and this is what critics argue, the witness was telling the truth originally, and then someone, maybe someone connected to Trump's team, helped them get a new lawyer who convinced them that changing their story was in their best interest. Maybe there were implicit threats. Maybe there were promises of financial support or legal protection. We don't know. But the fact that testimony changed after a lawyer switch, that raises red flags either way. And then there's the whole secrecy issue. In both of these cases, there have been legal battles about keeping witness names secret. Courts have had to weigh whether witnesses should be publicly identified or whether that puts them at risk. And look, this isn't unprecedented in high-profile cases. witness protection is a real thing. People do face genuine threats when they testify in major trials. But the question is, are we protecting witnesses from legitimate danger? Or are we hiding witnesses because someone doesn't want the public to know who's talking and what they're saying? Because there's a big difference between those two scenarios. Let's talk about the social media explosion around all this. The Vanish Witness hashtag isn't just some random trend that popped up and disappeared. It's been sustained, it's been amplified by major accounts on both sides of the political spectrum, and it's become a rallying cry for people who believe something shady is happening. On the MAGA side, you've got influencers and prominent supporters arguing that this is proof of deep state manipulation. They're connecting it to broader narratives about political persecution, about prosecutors who are willing to do anything to take Trump down, about witnesses being threatened or bribed to lie. They're pulling in other conspiracy theories too, stuff about Jeffrey Epstein's client list, about powerful people who supposedly have dirt on Trump and are using legal cases to control him. And yeah, the Epstein stuff keeps coming up because there's this persistent conspiracy theory in MAGA circles that Trump's legal troubles are connected to elite pedophile rings and blackmail operations. It sounds insane when you say it out loud, but millions of people believe some version of this, and when a witness vanishes, that just feeds into the narrative. Obviously, they were going to expose something big. Obviously, someone silenced them. Obviously, this goes deeper than just financial crimes or classified documents. On the anti-Trump side, you've got critics pointing to a pattern of witness intimidation that they say goes back years. They bring up Trump's history of attacking people publicly, of using social media to go after anyone who cooperates with investigations. They point to examples of Trump allies who face legal consequences and then suddenly had their legal fees paid by Trump-connected organizations. They argue that this is classic mob-style behavior, rewarding loyalty and punishing betrayal. And here's the thing that makes this all so explosive. Both sides can point to actual evidence. There really have been witnesses who changed their stories. There really have been prosecutors who seemed overly aggressive in pursuing cases. There really have been Trump allies who faced enormous public pressure and legal costs for testifying. There really have been questions about whether witnesses were being honest or strategic. So when a witness vanishes right before testimony, everyone sees what they want to see. Everyone interprets it through their existing beliefs about Trump, about the legal system, about political corruption. And the result is this absolute media feeding frenzy where nobody trusts anybody, and every new development just confirms whatever people already believed. The timing makes it worse. We're deep into Trump's second term now. The political stakes are massive. Every legal case against Trump gets interpreted as either justified accountability or political persecution, depending on your perspective. In MAGA leadership, they're in full damage control mode, because even if this witness situation is completely innocent, even if there's a perfectly reasonable explanation, the optics are terrible, it looks suspicious, it feeds conspiracy theories on both sides, and it gives political opponents ammunition. You're seeing MAGA leaders on social media trying to spin this a dozen different ways. Some are claiming vindication, saying this proves witnesses were unreliable all along. Others are deflecting, pointing to other scandals, trying to change the subject. Some are going full conspiracy, connecting this to broader narratives about government corruption. And all of them, every single one, is trying to keep the base energized and angry and ready to fight. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? It's not actually about one witness or one case. It's about maintaining a narrative. It's about keeping Trump supporters convinced that he's under attack from corrupt forces. It's about fundraising and political momentum and setting up the next battle. Whether this witness actually vanished due to intimidation or protection or personal choice, that almost doesn't matter anymore. What matters is how it plays in the media, how it affects Trump's image, how it energizes or demoralizes different political factions. Okay, so let's actually break this down into the key points you need to understand. Because there's a lot of noise around this story, a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories and political spin, but at the core, there are a few simple things happening that explain why this is such a big deal. Point 1. Witnesses in Trump cases face enormous pressure from multiple directions. Think about what it means to testify against, or even just about, a former president who still commands fierce loyalty from millions of people. You're going to face media scrutiny. Your personal life is going to get picked apart. You're probably going to receive threats online, maybe even in person. Your finances and career could be impacted. And that's before we even get into potential legal complications or questions about your own liability. So when someone decides to cooperate with prosecutors, they're making a huge decision. And when someone decides not to cooperate or changes their story or disappears entirely, that could be because they're scared, it could be because they're being pressured, or it could be because they're reconsidering whether their original statements were accurate or fair. All of those are possible. And without more information, We can't know for sure which one applies in any specific case. Point 2. The legal system is struggling to handle high-profile political cases. Look, our justice system was designed to handle normal criminal cases, drug charges, theft, assault, even white-collar financial crimes. But when you're dealing with cases against a sitting or former president, when every decision gets analyzed by millions of people with strong political opinions, when both sides have enormous resources and sophisticated legal teams, the system gets stressed in ways it wasn't built for. Judges have to make decisions about witness protection that balance transparency against safety. Prosecutors have to decide whether to call witnesses who might not be fully cooperative. Defense attorneys have to navigate representing someone who's also a major political figure with a massive public platform. And witnesses themselves have to figure out how to tell the truth while protecting themselves from the fallout. None of this is easy. None of this has clear right answers. The whole structure of our legal system assumes a certain level of normalcy, a certain predictability, but there's nothing normal or predictable about cases involving someone like Trump. Point 3. This feeds into broader questions about Trump and accountability. For Trump's critics, cases like these represent long overdue accountability for someone they see as having bent or broken rules for decades. They want to see witnesses come forward. They want to see testimony under oath. They want the legal system to function the way it's supposed to, without interference, without intimidation, without powerful people getting away with things that regular people would be punished for. For Trump supporters, these same cases represent political persecution. They see prosecutors who are motivated by political bias. They see witnesses who are being coerced or bribed to lie. They see a system that's being weaponized against someone who threatened the establishment, and when witnesses disappear or change their stories, that confirms their belief that the whole thing is corrupt from the start. There's no middle ground here. There's no shared reality where both sides can agree on basic facts. Every piece of evidence gets interpreted through completely different frameworks. Here's what actually matters about this witness situation. It highlights a fundamental problem in how we're handling political accountability right now. We have legal cases that are supposed to be about facts and evidence, but they're getting interpreted entirely through political lenses. Every development, every witness decision, every court ruling immediately gets spun by both sides to fit their narrative. And that creates a situation where the actual truth becomes almost secondary to the political battle. Did this witness vanish because they were intimidated by Trump's allies? Did they vanish because they were being pressured by prosecutors to lie? Did they vanish for completely unrelated personal reasons that have nothing to do with either side? We don't know. And because we don't know, everyone just fills in the blank with whatever fits their existing beliefs. This is the environment we're operating in now. Facts don't matter as much as narratives. Evidence doesn't matter as much as political positioning. And witnesses, the actual human beings caught in the middle of all this, they're just pawns in a much bigger game. This matters for Trump's political standing going forward. Even in his second term, even with the presidency secured, Trump's legal troubles continue to affect how people view him. For supporters, these legal battles prove he's still fighting the good fight against a corrupt system. Every witness problem, every delay, every complication, that just reinforces their loyalty. But for swing voters, for people who aren't fully committed one way or the other, this kind of chaos creates doubt. It makes Trump look surrounded by legal problems and suspicious circumstances. It raises questions about judgment and character. And for MAGA leadership, this is a nightmare to manage. They need Trump to look strong, to look victorious, to look like someone who's beating back false accusations. But when witnesses vanish, when there are questions about intimidation, when the optics are this bad, it becomes really hard to maintain that narrative. You end up in this defensive position where you're constantly trying to explain away suspicious-looking developments instead of staying on offense with your own message. Let's talk about what comes next. Because this witness situation is not going to resolve quickly. If this person really has disappeared, there's going to be an investigation. Courts will want to know where they are. Prosecutors will want to know if there was foul play. Defense attorneys will argue about what this means for the case. And media on both sides will continue to speculate and theorize and push their interpretations. Meanwhile, Trump's other legal cases continue to grind forward. More witnesses will be called. More testimony will be given. And every single one of those witnesses is now looking at this situation and thinking about what could happen to them. Does that make them more likely to cooperate because they're worried about being seen as suspicious if they don't? Or does it make them less likely to cooperate because they're scared of the potential consequences? Probably depends on the person and the circumstances. But either way, this vanishing act has created a chilling effect that's going to impact how future witnesses approach these cases. The political fallout is going to continue too. Democrats and Trump critics are going to use this as evidence that something shady is happening in Trump world. They're going to push for investigations into witness tampering. They're going to demand transparency about what happened to this witness. Republicans and Trump supporters are going to claim this proves the cases against Trump are falling apart. They're going to argue that unreliable witnesses show the whole prosecution is weak. Both sides are going to fundraise off it. Both sides are going to use it to fire up their base. And voters, regular people trying to make sense of all this, they're stuck trying to figure out who to believe because the media they consume is probably heavily slanted one direction or another. The social media feeds they see are probably echo chambers. And the actual facts, the verifiable truth about what happened and why that's buried under layers of spin and speculation and political warfare. Here's the bottom line. A witness vanishing before major testimony is always going to look suspicious. It's always going to raise questions. And in a case involving Trump, where tensions are already sky high and trust is already non-existent between political tribes, is gasoline on a fire. We might eventually get answers about what actually happened. We might find out if there was intimidation or protection, or just personal choice. But by then, the political damage will be done, the narratives will be set, and everyone will have already decided what this proves about Trump, about the justice system, about political corruption in America. This is where we are now. Witness vanishes. Both sides claim vindication. Nobody trusts anybody. And the circus continues. Stay tuned, because something tells me this isn't the last time we're going to see witness drama in Trump's legal battles. Not even close.